Okay, I wanted to take a few minutes and do a brief review of the sheep heart dissection that we performed last week in lab. What I want to start with first, this is just a whole heart. Let's look at some of the external anatomy that we talked about last week. What you need to do at first is be able to orient yourself, and you need to be able to tell anterior from posterior. This is the anterior surface of the heart, and we can tell that by this landmark here. This is the anterior interventricular sulcus, and the anterior interventricular artery, part of the coronary circulation of the heart, resides in the sulcus. And the sulcus divides left ventricle, which is this ventricle here, creating the apex of the heart, from the right ventricle, which would be this ventricle here. Okay? If we look at the heart from the top, this would be left atrium, and this is the right atrium on top. You can see little flaps. That would be the auricles of the atria. And I'm actually going to flip the heart over at this point. So now this is the anterior surface. We're looking at the heart from the top. And we can see some vessels on the top. We've got pulmonary trunk, which is going to be the most anterior vessel exiting on the top of the heart. Just behind it is going to be aorta. So this would be the aorta here. Okay, and then we can also find superior vena cava. So if I go in through superior vena cava, I end up in right atrium. Okay, which is where we know that superior vena cava is going to bring all that deoxygenated blood back to the heart, to the right atrium. Okay, so I pulled out a few dissected hearts just to talk about some of the structures in them. This one was a nice one. This one is mainly looking at left ventricle here, and we know that this is left because it's got nice thick heart walls, nice thick myocardium. It's got some different structures on the inside here that we can look at. One of the most notable is this valve here separating the left atrium from left ventricle. So you can see this flap underneath here, and you can see where it's attached to the heartstrings. This is your chordae tendineae. And if we trace those back to where they insert into this large projection of muscle, this is a papillary muscle. Okay, and if we look a little bit deeper into the wall of the ventricle, we can see trabeculae carneae, which would be the folds that are in the wall of the ventricle. Okay, this would be our thick interventricular septum here, dividing left ventricle from the right. It's just the way that this is cut. It's not a great view of the right ventricle. But it is really nice. If we trace our blood flowing from left ventricle out of the heart, it would travel out through the aorta, which would be this vessel here. And we can see the valve that's separating aorta from left ventricle. So this valve here would be aortic semilunar valve. And we know that it's a semilunar valve because it does not have chordae tendineae attached to it, because the semilunar valves don't. Okay. Let's see, this heart's got some good structures on it as well. So again, just to get oriented, we're looking at a cross section. This is going to be the left ventricle. This is right ventricle. Another way that we can tell that is we've got this structure here. Okay, this is moderator band. And moderator band is only found in the right ventricle, so that's going to help you tell left from right. So this is left ventricle here, and again we can see really nice trabeculae carneae, the folds in the wall of the ventricle. This is also got a nice flap, a remnant of the aortic semilunar valve here, because this would be aorta heading out of the left ventricle. And then another interesting structure here on the right side of the heart. This would be right atrium, and we can see all these nice folds on the inside of the atrial wall. Those are pectinate muscles. So those are only found in the right atrium. Okay. Also too, if you notice in this one on the right side is pretty good. We can see right AV valve or tricuspid valve, chordae tendineae, and then this large projection here is a papillary muscle where the chordae tendineae attach. Okay, so hopefully nice review and study for your quiz.